10 architectural mistakes that accidentally became icons. Welcome to Wonderscape, where perfection is predictable and failure is unforgettable. Today, you are about to see buildings that should have flopped, collapsed, embarrassed nations, or been torn down. Instead, they became world famous. A modular tower that was supposed to evolve but ended up frozen in time. A hotel that stood empty for decades. A skyscraper that melted cars in broad daylight. A tower that leaned so far engineers begged the world to let them fix it. And yet, every one of these disasters turned into a global icon. Here is the paradox. Architecture celebrates control, precision, ambition. But the world does not remember the perfect buildings. It remembers the imperfect ones, the flawed ones, the ones that survived their own mistakes. The countdown begins at number 10. 10. Nakagin Capsule Tower, Tokyo. This building was supposed to reinvent urban life. Architect Kisho Kurokawa imagined a future where every resident lived in a plug-in capsule that could be swapped out like a phone battery. Each pod had a circular window, a tiny desk, and just enough room for a single bed. It was meant to be flexible housing for a fast-changing Tokyo, a living machine that updated itself. Except none of the capsules were ever replaced. Not one. The system designed for constant renewal jammed on day one. The metal corroded. The interiors decayed. Residents reported leaks, mold, and temperatures that swung wildly. By the 1990s, the pods had become coffin-sized time capsules from the 1970s. The building failed commercially, socially, and economically. It was considered outdated and dysfunctional. Yet the world fell in love with the failure. Its modular shape became a cult symbol of retrofuturism, a monument to a future that never arrived. And the next building did not just fail socially. It failed politically on a global stage. 9. Ryugyong Hotel, Pyongyang A Hotel. Meant to show the world North Korea's power, became the greatest embarrassment in its skyline. Construction began in 1987 with the goal of creating the tallest hotel on Earth. A 105-story pyramid rising above Pyongyang. Then the money ran out. The Soviet Union collapsed, materials disappeared, and the structure froze in place like a giant, unfinished tomb. For 16 years, it stood empty, hollow, and windowless. Locals whispered nicknames for it: the Hotel of Doom, the Phantom Pyramid, a giant arrow pointing at the regime's failure. Eventually, foreign companies added a glass facade and LED panels. But the interior remains mostly unused, incomplete, and mysterious. Ryugyong did not become famous for what it is. It became famous for what it is not. A monument to ambition collapsing under its own weight. But the next building did not simply fail. It literally broke itself and attacked its own city. 8. John Hancock Tower, Boston. When this skyscraper opened in the 1970s, something unbelievable happened. Its massive glass panels began popping out and falling to the streets below. Each panel weighed hundreds of pounds, hitting sidewalks, shattering on cars, terrifying everyone. Pedestrians refused to walk near it. Police closed sidewalks. Engineers patched the holes with plywood. The press renamed it the Plywood Palace. The issue was traced to temperature stress and wind pressures the building was not properly prepared for. Over 1,000 windows had to be replaced. It became one of the most expensive fixes in Boston's history. Today, the tower is stable, reflective, elegant. But its legend is not the success. It is the moment a skyscraper shed its skin like a malfunctioning robot. And the next project did not injure people. It failed its entire mission. 7. Habitat 67. Montreal architect Moshe Safdie attempted to build the future of affordable housing. His idea was to mass-produce apartment units, stack them like blocks, and create a community where every resident had light, air, and a private terrace. The problem was cost. The modules were expensive to build, difficult to maintain, and impossible to mass produce. The original plan for 1,000 units shrank to fewer than 200. Instead of affordable housing, it became a high-maintenance architectural experiment that only some could afford. Critics mocked it as impractical and strange. But visually, Habitat 67 became unforgettable. Its cascading cubes appear in textbooks, documentaries, and architectural studies worldwide. A failed prototype turned into a global reference point. Proof that a dream can survive even when the math does not. And the next building became iconic for a reason no architect would ever want. If these disasters turning into icons shocked you, tap like right now, because the next 5 buildings are where failure becomes a spectacle. Now back to the countdown. 6. The Walkie-Talkie, 20 Fenchurch Street, London. This skyscraper was meant to look bold and futuristic. A curved glass facade rising above London. But that curve acted like a giant magnifying glass. On sunny days, sunlight reflected into a focused beam strong enough to melt car panels and scorch shop tiles. A journalist even fried an egg on the sidewalk using nothing but the reflected heat. Londoners joked it was the building that hated the city. Architects were humiliated. Engineers had to redesign the facade, adding sunshades to diffuse the beam. But the legends stuck. The Walkie-Talkie became famous not for its shape, but for the day it turned sunlight into a weapon. And the next tower did not use heat or light. Its failure was pure structural fear. 5. Turning Torso, Malmö. Designed by Santiago Calatrava, this twisting skyscraper is inspired by a sculpture of a human spine. During construction, the shape challenged every engineer involved. Costs exploded to more than double the early estimates. High winds caused unexpected sway. Support beams had to be redesigned mid-build. Critics predicted disaster. But it stabilized. The structure stood, twisting 90 degrees from base to top. It became the tallest building in Scandinavia. It was a financial nightmare. Yet visually, it became a symbol of Swedish modernity. Failure at the spreadsheet level, icon on the skyline level. And the next building risked something even bigger than money. It risked meeting itself. 4. Gateway Arch, St. Louis, USA. The Gateway Arch looks effortless. A perfect stainless steel curve rising 630 feet above the Mississippi River. But building it was anything but effortless. The two halves were constructed separately from the ground up. If they were misaligned by even a fraction of an inch, the arch would never close. It would twist, buckle, and collapse. Workers welded at extreme heights in swaying winds. Engineers monitored every millimeter. On the final day, the steel expanded slightly in the sun, delaying the final piece. Crowds watched, terrified, as crews sprayed the metal with water to cool and contract it. The final piece slid in. The arch locked. And the disaster that nearly happened became a national monument. But the next building began as a joke and ended as a photographic legend. 3. Flatiron Building, New York. When the Flatiron rose in 1902, critics mocked it. Too narrow, too strange, too unstable. Engineers worried strong winds would tear it apart. Newspapers called it absurd. But its triangular shape created visual drama unlike any building in the city. Photographers discovered its sharp angles and reflective surfaces. Soon the world fell in love with the building that critics once wanted demolished. A misunderstood experiment became one of the most photographed buildings in the world. And the next project nearly collapsed under its own ambition. 2. Marina Bay Sands, Singapore 3 Towers, supporting a massive sky park that looks like a ship floating in the air. The engineering challenges were enormous. The sky park extends beyond the edge of its support by more than 200 feet. It had to be built segment by segment, with precise counterweights and tension cables. Critics mocked it during construction. Some believed the pool would never hold. Others said the design was a billionaire fantasy. But the final structure became the visual identity of Singapore. A luxury mega-project that should have collapsed under its own ambition, yet became a global symbol of modern Asia. And now, the greatest accident in architectural history. 1. Leaning Tower of Pisa, Italy. The tower began leaning before the third floor was even completed. The soil beneath it was too soft, the foundation too shallow. Medieval engineers tried to correct it by building the upper floors at an angle. That made it lean more. For centuries, the tower tilted farther and farther. By the 1990s, experts feared collapse. A stabilization effort removed soil, added counterweights, and reduced the tilt slightly. But here's the twist. They did not fix it. They preserved it. The world decided the flaw was the beauty. The lean became the identity. The Leaning Tower did not become famous because it was perfect. It became famous because it survived the imperfection we refuse to erase. So here's the question. If the world's greatest icons are built on failure, then which of today's disasters will become tomorrow's landmarks? Which modern mistake is already turning into a myth? Comment your pick below. Tap like if you were shocked by how many failures became icons, and subscribe to Wonderscape for more stories that prove the world is stranger than perfection.